All right, we're live. Second. All right, there we go.
There it goes.
All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode, I think we're up to episode 14, believe it or not, Dane. We've made it this far.
Wow.
The MVRed Podcast. It's miracles do happen. And, we've made it to episode 14, so we want to thank everybody for tuning in. My name is Michael Metzinger. Joining me is my co-host, which, let's see if I do it right, Dane Davis. And joining us today, or this evening, is our first. Oh boy! Oh wait, 1 second. I'm getting an echo in my. Hold up. There we go. I'm sorry. I'm getting the video going through my ears from the live stream itself. And joining us are our first guest to the program. We have ShoMore Deniro, who is the chair of the Mahoning County Young Republicans, and James Mullarkey, who is the secretary of the Mahoning County Young Republicans. So we're very happy that both of them were able to join us this evening. It's been probably three and a half weeks since our last episode, and the last few episodes we really haven't focused too much, I think, on politics. We had a couple episodes where we kind of focused entirely on the COVID-19 pandemic, and then our last episode was focused much more on the response to the killing of George Floyd and the uproar and the protests in the streets related to that. So believe it or not, now we're in July and we're 120 days or something like that from the election, and it definitely doesn't seem like it's a top story still with everything going on in the world today. So we want to focus this episode on politics, and we're going to get back to the whole roots of what MVRed really is. I know we've kind of morphed it into a few other things, but we're going to talk about politics today. So we're going to talk first about the Young Republicans organization in Mahoning County, hear about what they do, their role in party politics, kind of how it came about, and how they go about assisting the various candidates running in Mahoning County. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about the 2020 election and Trump. I thought I said 2016, 2020 election. I did have a Joe Biden moment there. I apologize. Yeah, not good. So we're going to talk about that as well, and then we'll talk about a few other things on the second half of the episode. But if you're in the chat joining us, by all means, please share your comments with us. We try to make this as interactive as possible. And got my Indian shirt on today. I'm starting to get excited for baseball. It's going to be a little awkward with nobody in the stands. But, I'm looking forward to it. So before we turn it over and talk about the Young Republicans, Dane, you have any initial thoughts before we get started?
No, it's a beautiful day. Welcome to the second half of 2020. And I can't believe we've done 14 episodes of this, Michael. I thought you would have kicked me off by now, but you're letting me piggyback on all your hard work to take partial credit for it. So thanks for allowing me to continue to mooch off of you. And,
no, I think you had a lot. It's not like I've been writing any blogs or anything like that. So I kind of like the whole podcast. It kind of makes it a little easier.
It's easier. It's super easy. It's just talk, right? You don't have to use your brain. You just talk.
Correct. So let's start talking about the Mahoning County Young Republicans. So ShoMore, why don't you start off, kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with the party, and your position kind of in your day-to-day life. And then after that, we'll turn it over to James to share his, kind of tell us a little bit about himself.
Okay. So my name is ShoMore Deniro. I am the chair of the Young Republicans. We, for a long time, have just been Mahoning County Young Republicans, and recently we just became Mahoning County Young Republicans so that we could bring them in with us. I actually joined the party in 2016 when it was a huge, great presidential election, nothing like 2020. There was no COVID, and James knows we had a lot of fun. We met so many different people, people that we are still in touch with till this day. I volunteered a lot then, and well, that's how James and I became friends. And then fast forward to 2018, I started working for the Ohio Republican Party, and as you can see, the majority of our elected state officials, well, they're elected state officials, so they won. So we did that, and I worked with my local counties, and we did pretty decent there as well. And now I actually work for the Ohio Secretary of State. So I'm originally from Canfield. I live in Austintown now. I have a kitty. You'll probably see her walk around somewhere. So just a heads up. I don't think there's anything else I can really share at the moment. So
thank you very
cool.
much.
Yeah, thank you. I have a quick question. The Trumbull County Young Republicans, where are they mostly based? Are they all Niles and Warren? Because I'm originally from Newton Falls, Ohio, so
okay.
I'm a Trumbull County guy, and I went to school at Urson, so I was raised with a lot of Mahoning County kids, but they looked down at me because I was from Trumbull. So where are the Trumbull Republicans at? Where are they all located?
So I'm going to say hi to Kelly really quick. Hi, Kelly. So I think some of them are from like Lordstown. I think we have ones from Cortland. They're slowly growing and becoming more involved. So I think the more that we have the opportunity to get out there, we'll have a lot more come out from probably all over, Warren, Niles. But right now it seems like it's Cortland, Lordstown, a little bit of Warren. So
cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, James, you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is James Mullarkey. I've had the pleasure of knowing ShoMore since 2016. And as she told you, we got together our organizations. I mean, at the time I was at YSU. We had a chapter of, the YSU Turning Point USA and the Students for Trump. And we early, on got together with, the Young Republicans. And we formed the Students for Trump and all that. And going forward, we formed the Young Republicans. And it was, several of us, and some of us, we stuck together. We've been close friends ever since. And what we do a lot of doors and phone calls for local candidates in the GOP, and most recently fundraisers. And we try to help the party out as best we can. And shout out to Hubbard.
Hubbard.
Kelly too.
Cool. Very cool. I got a quick question for you guys. I don't mean to derail this, but so you were both involved with 2016.
Yes.
What was that like being on the ground? I lived in New York City at the time, so we were kind of like, shut up in our apartment. We just did volunteering through like phone banking, but we didn't do door-to-door knocking or anything. But what was it like going door to door? Were people receptive? What was that experience like?
Do you want to go? You can start.
You can start, ShoMore.
Okay. I think for us, it was very exciting. We had a great time. We would never go by ourselves. We would be in a group, and it would just be a great time. Honestly, the more there are, the more fun it is. So when it would come to knocking doors, and I wasn't there for an incident, James was, you just have to be careful what areas you go into, honestly. But usually I think for the most part, it felt really good. The people that were, we'd knock on the door and say, hi, can Donald Trump, well now president, can he count on your vote? They would either say, yes, most definitely, there's no other person out there because, I cannot have Hillary as my president, or they would say, no, get off my property. I don't want to talk to you. And it was pretty simple. It wasn't can you add on to that?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind experience. The way we felt we were making history. I think if you lived in the moment, it was a knee-jerk reaction. It's like, could we accept a Hillary Clinton presidency? I think that was too much for us to say, we cannot. We have to do our part to, help Donald J. Trump. And I think, there was a lot of, pushback in our direction. I think the silent majority was with us in 2016 and so in 2020 also,
So I want to get into that, and sorry, Michael, I'm derailing, but
no, you're fine.
I just want to say, this country, we have a pretty sharp political divide, right? But I think it's worthy of saying that young people that get involved in politics I have the biggest respect for, because you're putting your careers on the line, you're putting your personal safety on the line to go out and fight for what you believe in. And you talk to people, I'm sure talking to people changes your own beliefs. and you get to know your neighborhoods and stuff like that. So Democrat, Republican, I don't care your party, if you're going out and you're volunteering, you're getting involved, I think, mad respect to you, because it takes a lot of guts. It's a scary, scary thing. And I've done a couple campaigns really low key, but going door to door is just scary. Even calling people on the phone from the safety of your own home is really scary. So major respect to you guys. I'm not just saying that. That is really, really awesome. My next question for both of you is what's your feel? So you guys were involved with 2016. It's now 2020. It's the weirdest year ever. We've had killer. What's that?
So that's an understatement.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the year, right? I mean, like, the presidential election is like the 8th biggest story of everything else going on. What's the vibe on the ground? What are people telling you? What are people saying? Not just in our area, but all over Ohio.
You want to go? Well, really quick, I want to say, when you were talking about the YRs for a second, appreciating us for going out there, we did get a lot of people that were saying how amazing it is that young adults, teenagers, college students were out there knocking on doors and making phone calls. They absolutely loved it and they really appreciate it. But to go back, sorry.
No, that's great.
To go back about like how, for the most part, I feel like people compared to 16 are a little more outspoken. I feel like they've kind of just like, they've had enough. So, I mean, in 2016, they were saying they had enough. And at this point now, they're really, like, especially with everything that's happening now, they're just like, we're done. Like, we know like all the great things that he's done, what he's going to continue to doing. He's the best choice. Do you want to add on to that?
Well, I would completely agree with ShoMore. She's spot on with that. I mean, the full sentiments, people are more vocal, now than ever before, really.
Do you think that enthusiasm is as high now? It sounds like you're saying, as in 2016, like, my impression as an outsider is that enthusiasm is super low for both sides, right? For the Biden people and for the Trump thing, the Trump people. But you guys tell me if I'm wrong. What are people on the ground saying? Like, are they still keen on voting, or they're just kind of like, I don't care anymore?
Could I interject real quick?
Yeah.
See, from people that I've encountered, there's people that are being silent right now. But I mean, overwhelmingly, the people that I've talked to, they see what is going on in America right now, and they think that this course that we're on is unacceptable. And I mean, whether it be through the cultural Marxism or the violence and the protests and all that stuff, this is a trajectory that we cannot keep. That more people than I talk to are Trump than ever before, I think. And I think that the polls, be damned, more accurate.
Okay. I think your sound was given out a little bit, Michael. Did you have some trouble hearing him?
I think a little bit there.
Yeah, but I got most of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I want to add a quick question in here. So,
sure.
Obviously, if anybody's kind of tuned into the podcast, knows that I was very hesitant in 2016 to vote for Trump. It was kind of like a last minute thing where I finally decided I got to do this, and I've been, for the most part, pleasantly surprised with a lot of the results. But I'll be honest, I didn't see it coming in 2016, and so I really kind of want to hear from both of you. Did you see it coming, or were you as surprised as I was election night?
Election night was very interesting. The whole day was very interesting. So I think, like, for the most part, I think it's how everybody feels when it comes to winning something. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, we're going to do this. And then it gets there and you're like, oh my gosh, what if it doesn't happen? So I think that was like playing in our mind a lot. And I think we just kind of got nervous. I mean, I know I did. My friends and I were sitting there. We were poll flushing. We were checking and calling people, making sure they've went out to vote. And we were just nervous. But I think near the end, we started realizing, like, okay, why are we afraid? We know that there's nothing for us to worry about, because at that time you had him during his whole campaign speaking and saying things that I don't feel like any other candidate has ever really said. So that was really speaking to people. I mean, James knows we were all there. It was a very intense night. But I think there was a certain point where we all had that moment where we were nervous. I think it's just normal. I don't know exactly if you want to put something in there.
Yeah, I mean, backing up what Shamori said, I mean, it was a very nervous night. I mean, and I remember us all sitting together in the conference room as the returns were coming in. There was, Michigan, Wisconsin. And I remember at one point, I believe it was 2:45 in the morning, our good friend Jeff Rabel, he had his Twitter on, and the Associated Press, they called Pennsylvania. And by that time, we knew that put us over the top. But it took a good, hour and a half before the mainstream media reported that is fact. But I mean, we were magnanimous, and we will never forget that glorious night. November 8th, 2016. It was a magnanimous day to not be forgotten. It was beautiful.
So I actually think Trump's heading for a big defeat. I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to play the sourpuss, right? Okay. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but hear me out. I think Trump's going to lose this election. I think, and I was a Trump backer in 2015, right? Because I was kind of from the more non-interventionist side of the Republican Party, where I didn't want all the wars. I liked what he was saying on tariffs and on immigration and stuff. So that's what originally drew me to Trump. I thought he could have won the entire time. I thought the idea that Ted Cruz was going to be the nominee, I was like, come on, that's a joke. That's not going to happen. He's going to get it. And when he won in 2016, I was kind of surprised, right? I think if anybody says that they weren't surprised, they're probably lying. But I also kind of felt like, it makes sense, right? In the grand scheme of things. We just had Brexit that year. And so there are a lot of big political upheavals. But I think his campaign currently is a disaster. And I think the polls show him 10 to 15 points behind. And say that there's a 3 to 4 point group of people out there that, won't say that they're voting for Trump, but they'll show up, right? So add 4 to 5 points to his total, whatever it is. He's still massively behind. And I think that the campaign is just so far in 2020 is totally uninspiring. Because if you look at 2016, there was a really clear thesis, right? Hillary Clinton is corrupt. She's a warmonger. She blew up Libya, turned Libya into open air slave markets. She almost blew up Syria. And, she is a crony pawn of the political establishment. Here's Donald Trump. He's a bull in a china shop. He's not the most, polite guy, but he's something different, right? And a lot of people went for that. But now I see your cat, very cute cat.
I told you she's going to appear sometime.
But now it's just kind of I don't think there's a clear message coming from the Trump campaign at all. And I chalk it up to Brad Parscale and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and that. I think that, Hillary Clinton, remember in 2016, they're like, oh, we got the data. We're winning. And people be like, I don't see any Hillary signs. Everybody I talk to is voting Trump. And they're like, nope, don't worry. We got the data. The data says we're going to win. But they didn't have the vision, right? In the Bible, there's a really great quote, my people perish for a lack of vision. I think it's in the Bible. And in Trump 2020, it's everybody's talking about the data. Oh, we got the data. We got the money. We're good to go. We're winning by 80 points in Pennsylvania. We already won Pennsylvania. And I feel like, guys, what's this thesis? What's the mission? What's the vision, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm a pessimist, but I'll turn that over to you two.
I'll say this. Obviously, right now there's a lot of never Trump information in the last couple of months. Most prominent is the Lincoln Project, which is the baby child of George Conway, who's Kellyanne Conway's husband.
Yeah, he's very fat too. He's he's a scary dude. He is. I'm sorry. He's not.
You're right about that. But but also too, I will say that look at 2016. In terms of Ohio, Ohio was the center stage of the Republican convention out of Cleveland and whatnot. But at the time, Matt Borges, he was the state chairman, and his big pet project now is the pro-Biden PAC. It's called the Right Side, and it's formed in the last several weeks. I mean, and he's a pro-Kasich type Republican, but I mean, this is the opposition that President Trump is facing. These are people that are disgruntled Bush era, Kasich era Republicans that have not buried the hatchet of 2016 and before. And, I think there's a mentality in the Ohio Republican Party, if not that, but the National Republican Party, there's opposition that rejects the accomplishments and the achievements that President Trump has made in his tenure in office.
Okay. I just tend to think like, look, I'm not a never Trumper. I'm not that guy at all. But what I'm saying is like, there's not a grand, like, what's the 2020 campaign theme? Is it make America great again? Is it keep America great? I don't know. They're not really sure, right? Like, what policies is he going to enact if he gets reelected, right? What's he not doing now that he'll do if we elect him in 2020? I don't really know. I just don't think there's a strong of it. Like, the 2016 campaign was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. Decide whether or not you like Trump or not. It was a really well-run campaign because I think Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon really hit the right themes. But to me, again, it's just too technical, and there are no overarching themes and messages at this moment.
Sure. ShoMore, do you have anything to say?
I'm not going to add it. You mean, I'll be repeating what you said. So, I mean, I do agree with you. I feel like 16 was a complete different time for everything, though. And it was completely new. And he was new. So, I mean, at that time, it was very, as the young people like to say, the hype was up, like everybody was really feeling this fresh new face, the way that he spoke, the way that he carried himself. And I think this year with everything that's gone on, it's kind of hard to just like get there the same way that we were in 16. I don't know when it's going to come out. I don't know, like, if it's just going to surprise us. But yeah,
I would say this too. There's an ancient Chinese curse that goes back to the days of Sun Tzu, the art of war and stuff. And the ancient Chinese curse is may you live in interesting times. And how relevant a situation does it describe the year 2020? I mean, with this COVID virus and whatnot. The thing that we're living through right now, whether we like it or not, Donald Trump in 2016, he had, the gall to confront Red China. Red China has been on the advance in all corners of the globe as they advance their empire and as they violate free trade laws and try to disadvantage the United States in which they can. Donald Trump has been the key proponent who has confronted China, and that's an issue that we're going to have to contend going forward. And I mean, whether we like it or not, COVID-19 is the spearhead of this new Cold War, if you will. But I mean, the Chinese, the biggest military buildup going on the planet is Red China. And these people, they know that gun for gun, man for man, tank for tank, the Chinese can never match us, but their development is an asymmetrical warfare. And that's an issue that we're going to have to contend with going forward. That's going to be the key pivotal issue in the 2020s.
So, okay, 2 points there. And Michael, I'm not trying to talk.
No, you're good.
The first thing said, I think, is really, like, if I could encapsulate it, there was like a magic to the 2016 campaign. And it's hard to get that magic going again with all that's going on. That's, I think, my point, is that something's missing. It feels off on some deep level. I mean, maybe it's a Corona thing, and maybe once Corona starts getting lifted, it'll come back. But I do feel that, like, the magic in the air of kind of running against the establishment is kind of gone, and it's kind of hard to start the themes. And then with what you just said about China, the second point that was made, the problem with that is, and I salute Trump for taking on China, for imposing the tariffs. I think that's absolutely necessary. And I think it took a lot of courage to do that, because he got a lot of pushback from the big business community and, frankly, a lot of weak Republicans who were wrong on free trade. So I completely support him there. The problem is that Trump has kind of undercut himself by constantly trying to do another deal with China. And, when this was going in the outbreak in January, February, he was praising, he has this weird relationship with Xi Jinping, right, where he kind of praises him and he talks him up big time. And those words will come back to haunt him as it goes to the 2016 campaign, or later on in the 2020 campaign, sorry. And the campaign, like, look, you just brought up a brilliant point. Like, okay, China. Biden tooled China, right? His son is probably getting money from the Chinese. Biden's going to be a puppet of China, if not like whoever talks to him last, because he's seen out. I get that. I'm with you there. But I don't hear Trump talking about China that much. I don't hear that coming from the campaign. I don't hear that as a big issue. Like, I hear his supporters talking about that. But when it comes to the campaign, I'm not getting that message at all.
Well, this is what I would say. I mean, if you look at results don't lie. Donald Trump, starting in the year 2017 through Congress and stuff, they passed through the largest military buildup in American history, $700 billion for the development of nuclear weapons, hypersonic weapons, things that could counter the Chinese threat. And believe me, it is a problem in the South China Sea and around the globe. The Chinese are on the march in all corners of the globe, whether it be in Africa with the development of rare earth minerals that goes into your cell phones, your laptops, and smart devices. And it's a serious geopolitical reality of our time that we're going to have to contend to very soon.
I agree. I totally agree. The Chinese are a bunch of communist SOBs, to be polite. But I'm just saying, like, when it comes from the campaign and the messaging of 2020, Trump should be winning on this issue, right? Because he was right on this issue, and he took a lot of really brave steps. But his own rhetoric at the beginning of the year kind of is undercutting the message. And moreover, the campaign is just not, pounding this drum. And the themes of the race have not developed yet. I still don't know what the themes of the race are. Like, what are the big issues? I don't know. And I think that's because the Trump campaign is busy, looking at data analytics and Maricopa County, Arizona, and losing sight of the big picture.
That could be. So I want to kind of add my thoughts on this whole thing with the campaign, because I mean it's obvious, at least based on the polls, that he is behind. And I guess just to provide some context for everybody, as of right now, nationally, again, we don't decide our president with a national popular vote, but Biden's up 9.5 points, where at the same stage in 2016, Clinton was up about 5 points. So there's about a 4.5 point difference there from 2016 to 2020. But I'll say this, kind of in looking at the poll numbers, that the last 5 or 6 weeks have not been great for Trump, especially with his poll numbers. It started off, his numbers actually went up initially with the COVID pandemic, and then they started to fall a little bit. And then the killing of George Floyd came in, and the response to that, and he got very poor marks there, and that's when his numbers really started to tank. But it seems as though his numbers have kind of leveled off. He's kind of weathered the storm a little bit. He's, as I look here at the national numbers, he was down a little bit more about a week or two ago, I believe, when I'm confirming that now. But it seems as though he's kind of weathered the storm a little bit. So, like, I kind of figured it would happen. And if you actually dig down deeper into some of these states, like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, a lot of these states where right now he's behind, but if you actually look at the numbers in a lot of these states, he's still getting 43, 44, 45%. And if you look back to 2016 in a number of these states, it's not like he got 50% in them. He got 47, 48%. So I don't think he's too far off. I think his big issue right now is going to be winning over independents. I think that's where he's really struggling right now. And then B, maybe some of that soft Republican support. I'm not even saying that's necessarily never Trumpers, but just maybe old school Republicans that they might like his policies that just do not like him and his personality. So I think there's room to grow there. But I think another thing that's really missing, Dane, is this whole aspect of Joe Biden being able to he's benefiting from this whole situation because the whole COVID situation because he doesn't have to go out and campaign. You know, he had his first press conference in 80 some days yesterday, but he really hasn't been out there. So we've talked about it since the first episode that we have noticed that Joe Biden's cognitive state has declined. And we said, you know, it eventually we said that we thought the American people would see that. Well, the American people haven't been able to see it unless you're somebody who really follows politics. You know, the average person out there, they may have heard, Joe Biden's losing it, but until you really see and watch him and like see how he answers questions, he kind of has that look on his face, that deer in the headlights look. And until people see that, Joe Biden's going to be ahead in these polls. So, and one more point, because I'm all over the place right now. A couple weeks ago, I thought the Trump campaign did something on the surface that I thought was kind of a desperate move, which was calling for an additional presidential debate. But the more I thought of it, I think what they're trying to do there, and I could be way off, I think they're just trying to lock in the 3 debates. Because, you know, you hear some people saying Biden's going to try to get out of the Biden campaign is going to try to back out of these debates. I think they're, and again, maybe I'm just overly optimistic here. I think they're trying to lock in the fact Biden's campaign will commit to 3 debates, because I think that will be the moment that Trump needs to showcase the difference of, hey, we're both mid to late 70s. Look at me. You might not like me, but at least I'm getting stuff done. You could trust me during a crisis. And then look at him right now. Do you really think you could trust him with anything right now, with his mind the way it is? So I think there's definitely this race is a long way to go. 4 months. You know, Trump was down these same numbers 3 weeks before the last election, after the Access Hollywood, and he came back and won. So long way to go. But I think the whole pandemic has hurt his campaign. He hasn't been able to go out there. He doesn't have really a rallying message. And I think until he gets that, he's going to struggle probably until the debates. That's just my 2 thoughts.
I would say this, though. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to, you know, how the Democrats handle their convention, if in fact they hold one. And, you know, as you know, in the year 2018, you know, they voted to not use the super delegates on the first ballot when it comes to their convention. And that was to appease the Bernie-crats. But I mean, now, you know, anything is open question. I mean, Joe Biden's mental stability and his mental state is in question, very much so. So the question for the Democratic Party is whether or not they have a dark horse candidate or whether they proceed to carry out the course before them.
But I'm going to say something really rude, but I think everybody agrees that Biden is senile, but Trump's losing to somebody who's senile. Like, that's the problem, right? Like, Biden's the weakest candidate I've ever in my lifetime. John Kerry had more charisma, and he really did than Joe Biden.
Right.
And Trump's 15 to 10 points below. And that to me, that's not a Biden. I don't think people want it. Like, nobody in America wakes up and is like, oh, I can't wait to brush my teeth, have my coffee, and vote for Joe Biden. There's not a single human being out there, right?
Nobody needs to get out of the basement.
Yeah, right? But everyone's like, oh, he's still alive. I thought he retired in like 1997, right? But Trump's losing to that. That's the problem. Like, he's losing to senile Joe. It's not Hillary. Hillary, you know, she had her army of like soy boys that were ready to, you know, pounce.
But I would say this: don't trust the polling. The polling is way out of the margin of error in a lot of polls. And I mean, plus Team Trump is conducting its own internal polling, and as they did in 2016, which, you know, is more accurate, is more in tune with the current trend of what's happening in America. Now, this is an unprecedented trend. You know, what is going on? You know, the global phenomenon of COVID-19, but, you know, it raises the question of, you know, what is really going on? And I think that, you know, Team Trump, though, they have, you know, a more accurate reading of, you know, America in its current state, you know, far beyond what is going on in the global mainstream media.
Maybe. I hope so. I don't know. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I'll just say this. Like, okay, if I vote for Joe Biden, they're going to tear down statues of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. They're going to, like, you know, blow up Mount Rushmore. if I vote for Joe Biden, like the leftists are going to run wild in our cities, and Antifa is going to attack people, and they're going to ban conservative voices from the internet. But oh wait, all that's already happening right now. Like, yeah, it'll get worse, but it's pretty bad now, right? I think the big failure of the Trump campaign was he listened to Paul Ryan when he got inaugurated. Nobody likes Paul Ryan. Nobody voted for Paul Ryan when he was vice president. Nobody wanted Paul Ryan's agenda, right? That was a huge mistake. And he spent the first 2 years when he had all the political capital in the world, cutting taxes. And listen, I think that there were a lot of good reforms in the tax plan, but the country wasn't hungry for that. The country was hungry for bringing troops home, for curbing illegal immigration, for a lot of the other themes that cleaning up corruption. And I think it's just a big missed opportunity. And I think he's behind now. I hope he can. I think he can come back. I think it's still a very volatile situation. I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I just want the campaign. Don't say, well, the polls are wrong, because the polls can be wrong by 5 points, but the polls are not wrong by 10 and 15 points. I don't believe that. Don't be like Hillary.
Yes. I want to shift gears real quick, and kind of with your organization. So, like, ShoMore, like if you were involved in the 2016 campaign, and now you're with this organization in 2020, have you done any campaigning as of yet for the Trump campaign? And if so, can you kind of decipher the difference between maybe what the campaign had volunteers doing in 2016 versus 2020?
Well, so we actually work with BORP, who does Trump Victory. It's their campaign that they're doing to promote, basically to campaign for Trump, President Trump. And we actually started doing things, and then COVID happened. But I mean, kind of the same tactics. We understand that knocking on doors is very effective. People really appreciate when you go to their door, you speak with them, make phone calls. Sorry, guys. So, I mean, that's kind of the same thing that they are expecting us to do. It's just kind of hard to really do that because who really wants to kind of knock on people's doors at the moment? Right, James?
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing that's kind of stopping us. That's what's taking the excitement out of this campaign for 2020. It's just, I mean, as I said earlier, for us, for James and I in 2016, this was our fun. On the weekends, this was our fun, going out, knocking doors, making phone calls, coming up with cool ideas and slogans to shout out while we're campaigning for, President Trump. And this time it's kind of hard to do. I mean, you can't be around people without social distancing. Masks are no fun. Who wants to, I mean, I don't feel I don't know how I'd feel somebody knocking on my door with a mask on.
True.
You know what I mean? It's like, I can't identify you by anything. So I think that's like kind of, let's just like messing it up at the moment. And I honestly think that like, I don't know where this is going to go with COVID. I hate that it's happening during this time because I honestly, with our young Republicans, I feel very bad for the people that are not experiencing what we've experienced. Presidential campaigns, a lot of people don't pay attention. I should say nobody. A lot of people don't pay attention to local races all the time. But the presidential one is where everybody decides, you know what, I'm a poli-sci major and I know what I'm talking about. But it's fine. But it's fine. And this year, I feel like a lot of them, and we have new people coming in and wanting to be involved, but it's just not the same feeling. And there's nothing that we can, there's only so much that we can do. Right, James?
Absolutely.
But yeah,
it's strange times, but I mean, we're making the best that we can do. I mean, you got to play the hand that you're dealt, and as the ancient Chinese said, may you live in interesting times, and this is the year 2020. But I mean, I think that we have to take into account the geopolitical issues that are before us. I mean, now we've had a strategic situation like never before. I mean, you could make the argument that we're living in a second Cold War. I mean, what the Chinese are doing, that's a big issue to take into account. And I mean, it should not be underwritten, what's going on, where this virus originated, and the geopolitical implications because of it. I mean, in terms of the economies of the world and the United States,
Well, I do want to say, like, you guys are the ones that, please don't think I'm complaining about your efforts. Like, you guys are the ones actually getting off your butts and doing work. So it's always, I feel bad for campaigns because it's always the frontline workers that people always complain to. And the frontline workers are just like, hey, we're just doing what we can, when, sometimes the problems with the senior leadership. So, everything you guys said, I think are good points and well taken. I'm nervous. I'm very, very nervous right now. Maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know. You guys seem both pretty confident. Yeah.
Even if we are nervous, we can't show it.
Oh, that's right.
Trump's gonna win.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just wait till election night again and see what happens. I personally don't think that President Trump really has anything to worry about. As we like to call him, senile Joe. I mean, if you think about, you know where Trump stands, President Trump stands. You know what he can accomplish. You know who he is, not personally, but the personality that he has. So all the things that he does now should not be a surprise to anybody. I don't understand why I still see people complaining about it, talking about it. It is what it is. It's been the last 4 years like this. You should be used to it anymore. I mean, the U.S. is still standing. We're all still here. There's nothing wrong with any of us. Well, at least I don't think so. But I honestly don't think we have anything to worry about. For me, being African American and being a Republican is always a conversation. And I know for a fact when Biden, made that comment and said what he said, what was it? If
you ain't black,
voting for Trump, you ain't black. And I'm just like, oh my God. In all honesty, at that moment, I'm like, how stupid can you be? I looked at my mother. My mother is my mother's not very political at all. She has opinions. She's not Republican. She's not Democrat. She's just like, I'm in the middle. And she was like, he really messed himself up. It's just, you don't say things like that. And I think, in my opinion, I think that messed him up. But I know what to expect with Trump. I know who he is, what he does, and I honestly don't think we have anything to worry about. I think he stands for what he stood for in 2016, and he's going to continue. I don't know if that's going to be the MAGA. I'm pretty sure it's the CAX. Is that how we pronounce it? CAX. So we're going to keep America great. Maybe we should just get America better at this moment for 2020. Maybe that should be a thing. Get rid of the Rona or something. But
get rid of the Rona. That's a good one.
We're really trying. Like you said, we have the ORP, the Trump Victory, who they're recruiting a lot of people to go out and knock doors, make phone calls. It's just a little difficult this time, but they are making phone calls. They're sending out messages to people, letting them know, hey, even though this stuff is going on, we're still active and we're doing our ways to still make sure that President Trump gets reelected. So I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Well, that was an inspiring. I think you made me feel a little bit better. I think these are super weird times. Given
very weird. Did you not see this primary that just happened?
Yeah. So if there were ever a year to be like, ignore the polls, saying you're overreacting, this would be the year, right? So you guys made me feel a little bit better. You both seem very, very confident, and you can only fake so much confidence. So there was a lot of real confidence. So that made me feel better. So thank you guys.
Can I say one thing too?
Go ahead.
See, I think when everything is said and through, this election is going to be one of the most consequential elections in American history. I think you see a left that has been organized, that has gone against Donald Trump, whether it be for all the impeachments, whatever shenanigans that they could pull. You see a political left that's torn within itself between a socialist like Bernie Sanders and an establishment candidate like Joe Biden. Now the choice before us is clearer than ever before. Do we maintain the status quo, or do we embrace cultural Marxism and all the radicalism that goes with it? It's the antithesis of our system of government. our ideals, our principles, or do we sell our nation short? Or do we embrace, the promise of the future, the promise of looking within ourselves and the future of America? And that's the question that will be answered on November 4th, 2020.
That's a good framing of it.
I like. But let me ask this quick question, because right now, especially with social media, the left seems maybe not okay. The left, and then maybe millennials or those in college right now are really emboldened to post their political beliefs, political opinions about everything going on. And I don't see much pushback to it. And it kind of goes to this whole idea, is this, you hear about the silent Trump vote, silent majority. I like to call it more the silent Trump vote. I don't want to call it the silent majority. Is there more of that out there where maybe the people who are just not commenting or responding or posting things right now are like, listen, I don't want to even get the repercussion of saying I might vote for Trump. I don't want to deal with the consequences. I'm not going to put a sign in my front yard. I don't want to be looked at differently by my neighbors because I have a Trump sign in my yard, but I'm just going to go in there. I'm just not going to say a word. I'm just going to vote for Trump and move on. Do you think that now that's even more of a thing? Because, especially with the last 6 weeks, I feel like it's very unpopular right now to say anything pro-Trump, especially on social media.
Hey, Michael, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that there is an overwhelming silent Trump vote in this country, whether you want to call it the silent Trump vote or the silent majority. I think it is here. Of all the people that I've talked to, it doesn't matter their party affiliation. I think they have the same sentiments that what is going on in America right now is an unacceptable course, that we should aspire for greatness, for betterness.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there are a lot of people that are silent because they know it's like a huge controversy. You say something on Facebook and then you have he, she, everyone in the entire world saying something. And just because you put an opinion out there doesn't mean that you are looking for other people's comments. You're just kind of stating things and you're not looking for an argument. And I think that's where people get scared. They're afraid that they'll lose friends. So afraid they'll lose jobs. And I think some people get confused that when, let's say you're looking at policies from Joe Biden and President Trump, you're looking at seeing like where their views are. Yes, you may not be fully for Trump and you may not like him as a person, but you may look at his policies or his ideas and say, I do side with those, but I don't like him as a person. And I think sometimes people get afraid on what's going to be the outcome from others if they do. We've seen it a lot. And there would be times at the Campville Fair, James knows, we are always at the Campville Fair, and there would be a lot of those teenagers who would like come in very shy and they'd be super scared to just kind of walk in. And then we would have to just say, hey guys, are you guys Republicans? And they're like, kinda, I don't really want to say anything because my friends always go off. And we're like, well, come in here because we're like-minded people. We agree with you. We like Trump. We're Republicans. And they feel a little more comfortable. But at that same time, even though they meet us, they're still scared to just come out. And I think it's just having people feel like having an opinion is like a threat anymore. You can't say anything without anyone getting offended. Now mind you, it depends on what you say and what you do. But if you're having an opinion on who you're voting for and why,
right,
it shouldn't be an issue.
And see, there enters ShoMore's, idea. That's the issue that we face today is, the threat of cultural Marxism. To be a conservative and to, have, right-wing ideas in the year 2020, you're made out to be a social pariah. Whereas, if you look at it, the answers to society, conservatism and the ideas that it represents, us, the right, the Republican Party, are frowned upon by society. Why is that? We stand for, traditionalism, libertarianism, and anti-communism. It's a rejection of the cultural Marxism, cancel culture that has been a plague on our modern society.
And that's one of the big things about the Young Republicans. So, our main thing is to develop. We're developed. Then we want to maintain the YRs that we find and we keep them. And then we just want to grow countywide. We want to spread awareness that we're not full of hate. We're not, it's not that we don't care for anybody, but anybody who's just like us and have the same opinions as us. We want to just basically provide knowledge for other young people within our communities. And I mean, we're not one of those power pushers, I guess you can call some people, but we're one of those that we just lay out the information for you. And if this is something that you're interested in, or you know, you're like, hey, I have the same mindsets, I don't agree with everything, but I'm definitely a Republican. That's why we want you to join us, so that you can be with other people. I mean, James and I both know from being within the Young Republicans, we've had the privilege of meeting so many people, networking, learning new things that we may have not learned without being in the YRs. And I mean, as you guys can see, look what's happening. And we're so lucky on the Valley to have, we have a few young Republican candidates. We have Christina Hagan, who's running for the 13th congressional district. We have Al Catrona, who has been appointed to our former Don Manning state rep position for the 59th district. We have Michael Loychuk, who's running in Trumbull as well. So I feel like people see this and they feel like this is something like, okay, so young people are actually involved, because people always just think there's nothing but really boomers, especially here. You know, they're like, what the heck?
You know,
Dane's a big boomer fan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No.
Finish your thought.
I'm good. I'm done.
I was just going to say, you know, one thing people don't realize, people our age, is that there's a lot of opportunity out there, because politics is basically dominated almost exclusively by boomers. And the generation between the boomers and the millennials, Generation X, they don't exist. You'll never see them anywhere in the world. Like they're gone, right? I don't know where they're all hiding. They're hiding under a rock somewhere. So I'm serious. If you're a Democrat or Republican, I highly encourage you to get involved with the local party, volunteer, and you will be shocked at the opportunity available to you, because everything you just said was 100% on the money. Like networking, leadership, running for office. There's a big vacuum. There's a big void, and young people, all you gotta do is just show up, and boom, you can fill it. It's not hard. If you're nervous, it's not hard. Just turn up and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here, and go from there.
I did want to add, but I want to thank both of you for first coming on, but for secondly, pushing forth this idea of making the Mahoning Valley red, which is the whole idea of MVRed.com. I had to throw that in here again. But no, I really appreciate, getting rejection from going door to door or making phone calls. That's not always easy. You got to have I would say a strong personality to be willing to either be told, no, I'm not voting for somebody, or just, get away. I don't want to deal with Trump or this or that. And I give credit to anybody who goes and makes phone calls for candidates or goes door to door, because, if you get a few no's in a row, I mean, you can I haven't done it, but I'd imagine you got to feel kind of down a little bit. And so I just give you guys a lot of credit for what you do. And I think having a young Republican group in the county, especially one that hopefully keeps growing, and now one that would be working with Trumbull County, I think that'll go a long way to continue this momentum that we're seeing here in the Mahoning Valley, where a once solid Democrat stronghold, the Republican Party started to make legitimate inroads. And it wasn't just Trump winning Trumbull County and coming close to Mahoning County. You have Michael Ruley, you had Don Manning winning. You've had some other, like Portman winning, even DeWine doing well. Kasich, I know Kasich, that type of Republicans won here. So Republicans have had some success, and we're starting to make inroads. And I'm just hoping that hopefully we could build on that momentum moving forward, and at least at the local level, start giving the Democrats some true competition, because one party rule for whether it be a country, a state, or a municipality is not the way to go. And I'm hoping that we could give legitimate contenders, such as Ralph Meacham, county auditor, who's doing a great job. We just need more of those types of people who could step up, and I think it'll go a long way to making us at least a purple area moving forward.
Yes, I think we're going to be purple before we're actually completely red. I've grown up here my whole life. James, I mean, you're from Austin Town, you said, so like, I mean, I just don't see us being completely red anytime soon. Purple, sure.
Right.
So,
well,
realistic.
Michael, I shared the same sentiments as you. I mean, and you look at the conservative cause. What we're trying to do with the Republican Party. At the local, state, national level, we're all happy warriors here. We're trying to advance the same cause and the ideals and the beliefs that we believe in. And I think if we stay the course and we keep our sentiments strong, we can do that. It might take time, but we will do it.
It's worth the fight. So keep on doing what you're doing, and thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
I apologize. We ended up getting this far, almost an hour in, but
it doesn't feel like that at all.
No,
it really doesn't. Yeah. It goes by. I think it's you guys. You guys are such great hosts, and thanks for having us. We really appreciate it, and congratulations. So this is your 14th.
Yes, 14.
That's too nice. You guys are too kind. Thank you seriously, thank you. And sorry I was a little ranty about the campaign. It's just scary times, but you guys are truly happy warriors, and very, very good at perking people up. No wonder you guys are YRs. You're doing a good job at it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully between now and close to the election, we could have you on again and kind of give us a feeling to how kind of you feel the campaign's working, especially being boots on the ground. Hopefully you're able to be boots on the ground if maybe doing some more social distancing. But just want to thank you again both for coming on, and we'll plan for that. And if you guys ever have any events or anything like that you want to share with us that we could help promote, by all means, let us know.
Thank you.
Thanks,
both.
All right, thank you both. Take care.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Their little squares disappeared. Are we still going? This is the grand finale of the show. Is this where it gets super spicy?
Yes. Yeah. So again, thank you to both of them for being our first guest. We've tried a few times, had a couple of technical hiccups along the way, and a couple of people back out. So we're happy that they were able to join us and kind of add some insight. Finally, actually talk about politics after 4 episodes of not talking politics. So I was happy to do that.
We're going to get James Tolliver on too. He's coming at it from a left-wing perspective. And, we want to do callers. If you want to call in, give me a call on my cell phone. We'll do guests. We'll do callers. We'll do it all.
If you ever want to join us, just let us know in the chat. I'll send you guys the link as well. You could just join us with your camera if you'd like to do that. You don't even have to have your camera on. You could just talk with your, gray image or whatever. Just talk audio only. That's fine as well. But we certainly do encourage, we want to have opposing viewpoints. We don't want this just to be entirely red meat. This was more of a red meat episode, but that's fine to have as well. It's the whole idea of Mahoning Valley Red. So I got that in 3 times today now.
Gosh, you've been plugging that hard, almost as hard as I plug Casper mattress, the mattress of choice. Yeah. I don't know about you, Michael, but if I've been working a lot plugging MVRed, which is about turning Mahoning Valley red, started by Michael Metzinger in 1992 after he was born. After a long day of hard work, I like to go and take a nap. And what better place to do it than Casper mattress? Casper mattress, they don't sponsor the show. They really should. They should give us paychecks to talk about Casper mattresses, the most comfy mattresses in the world. And speaking of things that start with the letter C, can we talk about cancel culture? That's a double C. Casper mattress cancel culture. Say that 10 times fast.
Let's do it.
So what do you think?
I think it's a relevant discussion with everything going on.
Are we going to get canceled? What's going on? What do you think, Michael? I have some thoughts, but I don't want to predominate. I'll let you take the first stab.
So I do want to share something now. I don't know where Dane's take is on this because we haven't talked about it, but I shared this on the MVRed Podcast Facebook page. If you don't like us on there, we've had a lot of people watching this episode. like us on MVRed Podcast. So facebook.com/MVRed Podcast. Get another plug-in. So it was an image I shared. I'm on LinkedIn. You know, I occasionally will browse LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
so it's the former.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I just want to go on LinkedIn rant. I think I'm really sorry this is derailing it, and Michael, I hate to always interrupt you, but on LinkedIn, there's a group of people who use that to turn it into like their own personal blog and post politics. Like I've seen, I'm not kidding you, a LinkedIn post where somebody's like, my wife came out as a lesbian today, and I have discovered that I'm a bisexual. And I'm like, whoa. And then he's like, she's leaving me with my children, right? She's leaving me with my children. And this guy was like a copper analyst, and that's why I was connected to him. And I'm like, what the heck is this? You know, somebody's live journal, or is it LinkedIn? LinkedIn is weird. It used to be like, hey, I needed a job. Let me create a profile. Type in my skills, Microsoft Word, and then apply for work. But now it's weird, people, and that people are like, at the age of 5, I was left for dead at the side of a road. At the age of 7, my mother said she didn't love me. At the age of 9, I lost both of my eyes to cancer. And at the age of 14, I was sold to a Venezuelan drug lord to pick cocaine in the fields. But now I'm graduating from Harvard Business School, and I'm going to get a job at McKinsey Consultants. And it's like, oh, okay, that's great, but who are you and why are you on my LinkedIn feed? So, sorry, I'll let you keep going. But
no, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have noticed, especially I would say in the last 6 months, a considerable increase in political posts on LinkedIn. And there's certain people who I'm connections with who will like these things. So I'm not connected with like Joe Smith and let's say Vermont, who post something like pro-liberal or something like that. But one of my connections will like it, and I'll see it. But I'm amazed with I have like 30,000 likes or whatever it is on LinkedIn. So it's quickly becoming a place where people are posting their political views. And I would definitely, I'm of the belief, I try to stay clear. Now, I've liked a couple of things, but I'm not going to outright post like, hey, I might vote for Trump this election or something like that. I don't think that's the proper place to do so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's weird. It's just super weird. It's a business networking site, post a news story from CNBC, but there's really weird stuff on LinkedIn. But anyways, you were going somewhere with this. We were talking about cancel culture, and you had a point. I derailed you, so sorry.
No, and so for the people tuning in, whether it's on the live stream or going to be tuning into our podcast, so Jay Williams, he's the former mayor of Youngstown. He ran as an independent, but he was essentially a Democrat. He ended up serving, I believe, maybe as the auto czar in the Obama administration, as a firework just goes off in my neighborhood. It's been like bombs away Somalia for a week straight in my neighborhood, by the way.
Cancel culture.
Sorry about that. I heard another one.
Are you implying Somalia is a violent country?
Yes.
I didn't say it. He said it. Somalia is a great place to live.
Shame on me. So I just want to read real quickly the post from Jay Williams on LinkedIn, who posted this. And Jay Williams is a black man, again, served, I think, again, as a auto czar, maybe under the Obama administration. But he essentially says this, and we'll talk about it. But I kind of am in line with his line of thinking. So he says, our country is once again engaging in ongoing debates about what to do with statues and monuments of controversial historical figures and images of our past. He says that he doesn't necessarily subscribe to the notion that all of these symbols should be removed or taken down. It's history that we can't and shouldn't try to erase from the public consciousness. Instead, I think it's more important and powerful to leaving many of these up, but with permanent plaques and descriptions kind of telling the whole story about, their history and the whole story behind them, and let them serve as reminders of the good, bad, and ugly and painful history of our country, and a guide to help us navigate a more just and equitable path forward. So that's somebody, a black man who his post is actually talking about the Confederate statues, but that's his take. And I think it's a very reasonable take. And I don't subscribe to this notion that there is a huge majority of people who really are in favor of what's happening with these statues. And I think, if anything, it's pushing, the left is pushing a little too far. And I think again, it's one of those things where it's like, you do this shit, pardon my English, you're going to make somebody who hates Trump say, well, I don't want that shit to happen. I might as well just vote for Trump because I don't want to see 4 years of this cancel culture getting worse and worse. So I guess those are my initial.
So the only thing I'll quibble with you on is when you said like the left is going just a little too far. Oh, I don't know, trying to destroy statues of George Washington. Yeah, that's a little too far. No, the left has lost their minds. They're drunk on power. They're pushing against a presidency that has been weakened by the coronavirus and the response to it. They're taking advantage of the fact that people are unemployed with nothing to do, so they're using it to gin up protests and riots. And look, here's who's driving these protests, right? This is not an organic uprising. This is a revolt of the American upper middle class, because the new default religion of the American upper middle class is wokeism, right? And it's a way that they show their class superiority. Because, in the 80s, you would buy a Sub-Zero refrigerator to show that you were wealthy and educated. Maybe in the aughts, you would have a .com company. And in 2020, the way you show that you're better than other people is by you fully embrace the tenets of wokeism. And, one of the benefits of wokeism is that the language is constantly evolving. And there's all these new concepts out there that only if you went to a university within the last 15 or 20 years would you even be familiar with. And, if you read the right magazines, The Atlantic, The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Washington Post, right, which skew to upper educated, upper income groups, you too can be familiar with all these terms. And to me, the big divider, the big motivation behind this are yuppie millennials, right? The yuppie millennials with too much time on their hands who want to redo America. And look, here's the thing. The Confederate statues were just an easy argument because nobody really is sympathetic to the Confederacy, even though they were our countrymen. And, as Lincoln said, we were supposed to forgive them and welcome them back into the country because they were our brothers, right, and sisters. But the Confederate statues, that's not what this is really about. This is really about the purging of history. And does a mob have the right to do this, right? That's what really makes me mad. America is a free and democratic country. We still have democracy. We have rule of law. This isn't East Germany. This isn't, Saddam Hussein's Iraq. This is the United States of America. And if you don't like a statue, go to your local community, ask your representatives to put a resolution to take down the statue, debate it through a council, through, moderated debate, weigh the pros and cons, and then take it down or not and move on. But that's not what's happening. This is a mob taking over, and a mob is antithetical to democracy, and it's antithetical to any sort of Republican system because a mob determines that they themselves are the law, not the process and not order and not councils, okay? And it's very, very scary to me to see what the mob is now doing. You have millennials whose knowledge of history begins with racism, right? They have no knowledge of world history, no knowledge of European history or African history or Asian history. They don't know that for most of humanity, to quote Thomas Hobbes, we had lives where they were nasty, they were brutish, and that were short. And it was thanks to Western Europe and the United States that humanity progressed, banning slavery, implementing, human rights, allowing tolerance and freedom of discussion. These countries are not perfect. They frequently fail. America has its sins, but the ideas contained within America are noble. And America as a country, relative to the rest of humanity, deserves respect and honoring, if for no other reason that it's our country and our home. Sorry, I'm going on a rant, Michael. But these cultural people, this is totalitarianism because it's not just, I heard this argument, it's just like boycotting something. No, it's not like you're boycotting fucking Pepsi, okay? What they're doing is they target random people, weak people, okay, who are, working and, just random individuals and citizens, and they make an example of them. And they'll say, well, what they said was racist and wrong, right? And the problem with that is nobody wants to say racist things, but the definition of racism has expanded so much. The definition of wrongthink has expanded so much that a leftist who posted in a group chat about how riots increased Republican share of the vote was promptly thereafter canceled. Okay, this is a moral hysteria. It deserves no respect, and I think that cancel culture is the role of the mob above a society of dissent and debate. And let me put one final point out. There are really bad ideas out there. There are racist ideas. There are totalitarian ideas, etc. And the way you defeat those ideas is through argumentation and reason and logic and debate. Okay, it's not being a little tally-tale trying to go and say, "Hey, employer, this guy's a bad guy. We're firing him." Like, how could you have any damn respect for the tattletales of the world that have launched this cancel culture, right? You have millennials that have been coddled. They're narcissistic, and they can't handle people that disagree and that think differently. For all the talk of diversity in the last 20 years in America, diversity of thought has gone down because you have to repeat the same.
You took what I was about to say.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. That was my big point.
It's horrible. Shame on the shame. And I'll give one more point, right? I saw a little poster. This came from somebody that I know, and they posted a poster. And the poster was using Soviet-era 1930s realistic I can't even say the word, iconography. I said that wrong. Apologies. It was using the art style of the Soviet Union. They said, if you're not for social justice, you're on the sides of the oppressor. So think that for a moment. If you're not for their politically defined agenda, then you're an enemy. You're not only an enemy, you're an oppressor. You're a bad person, right? And this is dangerous thought because it allows no room for dissent or discussion, right? Totalitarianism, despotism, authoritarianism, all these ideologies, they always come in with good intentions. They always say like, hey, we're the good guys. We're fighting for good things. And then it ends in bloodshed. Okay, nobody's like, hey, I'm evil and we're going to be, really evil and take over. No, it never goes like that. It's always people that are like, hey, we're fighting for the cause, man. Oh, these guys disagree. Well, they're just a bunch of ignorant racists. Let's censor them and get them to sit down and shut up, right? That's a horrible mentality. And it's antithetical to liberty. You don't have to be a Republican. You don't have to be a conservative. You just have to be an American to realize that trying to get people fired because they disagree with you is, one, reflective of an insecure, narcissistic, petty tyrant personality, and two, against everything this country stands for. So there's my point on cancel culture. I'm probably going to get canceled for that.
I like it. I hope you don't get canceled. You stole my thunder.
Sorry, Michael. I'm sorry.
No, Kurt Blackburn chiming in the chat. Those who forget the lessons history teaches are doomed to repeat it. So I've seen that phrase. We also have somebody who disagrees with us in the chat. I don't know if you see Sean Kerr. Is that somebody, a friend of yours?
Sean Kerr. I know Sean Kerr. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll read his. I'm sure you could see him, but here he essentially says Trump is a racist, terrible president. But his other post was, oh, yes, the majority of this country wants to support and allow racist Confederacy imagery and statues to stand. Yep, definitely. Haha, Washington, he was a slave owner, for Christ's sake. We need to stop honoring or paying homage to any historical racists. I mean, weren't a number of our founding fathers?
Well, Sean Kerr is a Irish nationalist. And I would just ask Sean, what is Ireland if not an ethno state? Right? If you're an Irish nationalist, you're by definition somebody that wants a racial state, because you want the Irish people to control all of Ireland. So Sean Kerr, you know who you are. If you're listening, I would just check your own privilege before you start checking the privilege of others. There you go. Don't worry about Sean. He's just a troll.
No, that's fine. I wanted to make sure we shared his opinions because again we welcome everybody's opinions. But my whole thoughts on this is it seems as though, again, I love to harp on social media because I think this has really given an avenue to enable this to be amplified much more so than like pre-social media times. And now it's a way where, oh, my friend's doing it, my other friend's doing it, I'm going to join on board with this and support this cause, blah, 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 blah. But there's like this groupthink mentality where like, I gotta think the same way as all my other people and go along with it. But my issue is you too many people are in this bubble. Like, I lean right, but I'm at least cognizant and willing to hear the other side. There are people now on both sides, but especially with what we're seeing right now with this cancel culture, who don't want to have any of this whole idea of diversity of thought. They preach diversity, but the hypocrisy is mind-boggling to me when it comes to ideas of diversity of thought. They don't want that. They don't want diversity of thought. They don't want diversity of party. They want it their way or the highway, except on like social causes and different things like that. Oh, I'm okay with this. But they're backing themselves into a corner where they might think they're advancing their cause adequately or appropriately. But again, I think they're clearly going too far. I will say this, and maybe this is a controversial take. I guess I've never understood the whole idea of the Confederate flag. Just kind of whole idea of growing up. Like the Civil War is like one of our darkest days, if not the darkest time of our country. When our ancestors of the North and the South, I don't know how many people died, hundreds, thousands, millions died for a war.
I don't think millions died, but I do think thousands died. I think it was around 50,000, or I think it was in the several hundred thousand. I
was going to say, I thought maybe hundreds of thousands passed away but were killed in a war when essentially two ideologies and a group of states seceded from the United States of America. Now, I don't think it ever became a legitimate sovereign nation in any way, but they were fighting to become one essentially. And I guess I've never understood this whole premise of like celebrating the Confederate flag. Maybe I'm just this awful, this Northerner who just, hey, I'm from the North. My side won. We got the United States of America, but I don't understand the whole love affair with the Confederate flag. But to piggyback off of that, I don't like the idea of a government coming in and saying, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. I think that's taking it too far. People could be judged one way or the other, but I don't like kind of the government coming in and just canceling stuff because it's convenient politically right now to do so.
This isn't the government. See, here's the thing. They target the left. You cannot trust the left. They want to destroy you, Michael Metzinger, because you are everything that the left wing hates in this country. You're a straight white male with a family that's married, right? You're a Christian, right? Like the left hates these things. They cannot stand these things. So what defines the left? What defines the left is their opposition and hatred to those traits that I just described, right? And they blame you for all of America's problems. And they really think that you, Michael Metzinger, okay, are at the root of what's wrong with America. I don't think so, but that's what they think. So I'm a Yankee. I'm from Ohio. I was born and raised in Ohio. My ancestors trace all their lineage back to Ohio and Pennsylvania. I have no ties to the Confederacy whatsoever. So I've never waved the Confederate flag. I don't have any ties to it, right? But the Southerners were, for better or worse, our brothers and sisters, and a lot of them were fighting not necessarily because of slavery, although I think that was the primary motivation. And I think it's wrong, by the way. I think the Republican Party was founded as the anti-slavery party. It undermines the bargaining power of labor. But they were still our countrymen. And when the country came back together, there was a process of healing. And this is actually a really Christian notion that our country used to understand, is that you can vehemently disagree with somebody. You can say that they are wrong, but you can still love them because they're your brother. You can still forgive them, right? And you can still want to honor them. And to me, it's like we're trying to purge something that happened. And does it make the state of Black America any stronger? No. Does it make our country any more unified? No. I mean, if a state wants to change the Confederate stars and bars on their flag, that's not for me to have. Okay, I'm not there. But this purging of history, they always pick the easy targets. Right now, the Confederacy is an easy target. They've already moved on to George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson. Okay. And they're just destroying American history step by step by step. And when we have no common founding fathers, when we have no common symbols, when we have nothing to bind us together, and we're totally atomized, then they can truly bring down this country. So, you got to draw the line somewhere. And the thing that disappoints me most about Republicans and conservatives is that they're always like, well, this isn't the hill to die on, and they lose. They're just Democrats of 15 years ago, right? And eventually there's going to have to come a point where you say, nope, this far and no further. It might be irrational to defend this, but this is part of what we're defending, and nope, we're not pushing it. And by the way, the people on the left, they have absolutely no moral righteousness to go after on the race issue in America, right? Where there's the worst police brutality, these cities have been governed by Democrats for decades, okay? That's the Democratic Party in action. Where there's the worst income inequality, those states are largely Democratic government states like New York, Connecticut, DC, which is not a state, but Maryland, California. Those states have the worst income inequality. Where they're the failing schools, you can find Democratic leadership, okay? Where you want to talk about the wages of the Black community, part of empowerment is through economic empowerment. It's by getting good jobs with good wages, starting to save up money to build wealth, right? But through the open borders immigration policies of both legal and illegal immigration, that has hurt the Black community more than anybody. And the Democratic Party is largely responsible for that, but not exclusively. Republicans share in the shame. So I have no moral guilt over the way I treat my fellow Americans, because I believe my policies are the best for all people, regardless of their color, right? That's the way genuinely I view it. And I'm not going to let these little hipsters who, buy Funko Pops and they can't leave the basement because they play video games all day. They've never fathered a child. And they don't know how to pay on a mortgage, right? Because they have a $13 an hour job. I'm not going to let them lecture me. No, shut the fuck up, hipster. Shut the fuck up, millennial. Okay, sit down. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this podcast, but sit the fuck down. Okay, pay a mortgage for 5 years, and then you can have a political opinion, and you can join the table. Move out of your parents' basements, and then you can have a political opinion. But until then, sit down, millennial. So there you go. Sorry.
When they do get one, they're going to want the government to cancel it.
Yeah.
That'll be the big thing. But I guess I have nothing else. I mean, you kind of stole my thunder with the whole.
I'm sorry, Michael.
No. You said it 100 times better than I ever could, and you're far more educated on the topic. It's just people want to erase our history, erase our heritage, and we need to fight for it. We need to fight to preserve it. And you watch. There's going to be, if it hasn't already happened, I'm sure going to be a movement with the 4th of July. Why are we celebrating this country? Why are we celebrating the flag? This and that. You watch. I am sure I will see it on social media. It'll be more common as the nuts get louder and louder about the whole thing. Any final thoughts before we wrap this episode up?
No, I think this was a great episode. I want to thank our guests, and I want to say, be not afraid that right now on social media the left has monopolized it, and they want to destroy anybody that disagrees with them, and they want you to be demoralized. They want you to be afraid. They want you to think that you're in the wrong. They want you to think that you're a bad person. And you know what? If you're listening to this podcast and you're a decent human being that wants best for their fellow Americans, you're not a bad person. Tell the left to sit down and shut up, ignore them, and just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because if everybody on the right just stood up, you couldn't be stopped. So that's all. And listen to MVRed and buy a Casper mattress. Casper, now creating pillows.
Does Casper compete with the MyPillow guy?
Oh, I don't know.
Is Casper it's like the owner of Casper, like a big liberal,
Oh, that would be a good twist. Yeah.
That would be. I don't know why they're supporting our podcast.
Oh.
Maybe there's two big conservative mattress manufacturers in the United States.
Maybe they thought it was MVRed for the Soviet Union communism.
It's funny. When I first created this, there were some people who said, Redsford copy this. And I'm like, well, obviously that's not my intent behind this whole name for MVRed, but that's neither here nor there. But I want to thank again ShoMore, Deniro, and James Mullarkey from the Mahoning County Young Republicans for being our first guests ever on the podcast, episode 14. We've made it this far, and it was kind of great to hear how they see things right now from their perspective. They're making phone calls. They've done, I guess, some limited door-to-door campaigning, but it's kind of good to hear from them, and it's good to have an organization like that, like I said earlier, to help grow the Republican Party here. I think we're getting closer to where we need to be. I think a couple more, like a county seat, something like that. Maybe county commissioner start there. Kind of just keep working our way in there, and then really make this a much more competitive thing. Which, regardless of where you stand on the issues, is better than having one party rule. You need that competition. You don't want just whoever wins the primary to be the de facto candidate. So I'm looking forward to see what they could do. So keep up the good work with them. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you, I guess if you're listening on the podcast, please subscribe. If you tuned in, hopefully you liked us on Facebook and you subscribe as well. And any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Have a good night, Michael.
You as well, Dane. All right, everybody, take care.